Jimmy Graham, tight end, was a star with the New Orleans Saints, went to the Chicago Bears, was in Seattle, came back to New Orleans. He was found on walking in the middle of the street at 7:30 on Friday night near the New Orleans home hotel in Newport Beach. And he was stumbling. He could not talk. It was like he was lost. So he was stopped by the police after he held up traffic in the middle of the roads, and they tried to take him to a hospital, and then they had a confrontation with this big 6'6" tight end. So he got charged with resisting arrest. They finally got him settled down, got him examined, and they found he had a seizure. They don't know whether he had the seizure in the team hotel or whether he was walking outside the hotel and had a seizure and became really disoriented. And then next thing you know, he's in the middle of the street. The Saints have taken him off the active roster. He's undergoing, I guess, a wide variety of a battery of physical exams to find out what triggered this episode. He does not have a history of seizures or those type of health problems. He's had football injuries, but nothing from a head standpoint. So that's a really scary story, because all of a sudden these people driving in Newport Beach, it's a 6'6" man standing in the middle of the street, not knowing anything. So the Saints are really concerned, and I hope it's a physical malady, that they can get this under control, and they'll do the test to see if maybe this has got something to do with a concussion. But he was not on drugs. He was not on alcohol. It was at 7:30 in the evening on Friday, and he had just practiced for the Saints against the Chargers. They had 2 days of practice and then stayed here to play the game on Saturday. He was not on the field in his civvies, obviously did not suit up in the Saturday Saints game against the Chargers, but scary story.
Yeah, that's tough. You know, for some reason, I don't know, this isn't exactly a parallel, but I'm thinking of that offensive lineman or a center that was on the Raiders and didn't show up for the Super Bowl. Remember that?
Barrett Robbins.
Yeah. But that was more of a mental health thing, I think.
The mental health thing, that was a drug issue.
And
that was bipolar. He had severe bipolar. And when he came off his meds, he went off on tangents. He wound up in Tijuana. That's where they found him, and came back, and they finally got him help, but he was out of football. And he's had a series of problems in Texas in his post-football career, but that's all triggered by bipolar.
Well, think about back in the day when this sort of situation, it must have happened, in old school NFL in the 60s and 70s, because they had a lot less protective equipment. These guys are getting knocked around. And if he's kind of loopy, walking around town, they probably would have just brought him in. No one would have said anything. And now at least it gets attention. He's going to get the medical service that he requires. But I think for us as fans, it's good for this to be news oriented, so we can make sure that we're keeping people's health in mind, and we understand all the side effects of being an NFL player.
Well, you might get hit in the head now and you're okay, but 4 days from now, you might not. A year from now, you might not. We had an incident right at the end of the Saints-Charger game on Saturday night. Jake Haener, the Washington Husky Fresno State quarterback, came in and played the second half, and he was lighting it up. He took back-to-back wicked hits in the pocket. He made plays, but boy, he paid a price. So they're coming out of the huddle after back-to-back big pass plays down the field, and the officials come in, and they grab him, and they take him off the field because they have a sky judge, the guy that looks at players who've been involved in violent contacts, and then he'll message down to the referee, take a timeout, let's remove this player for observation. So they took Haener out over his protests, walked him to the sidelines, walked him into the, quote, blue tent, did whatever administrative test, and about 2 plays later, he came back in the game, and he was okay. But so the protocols are in place now to help those guys that get dinged, or the old phrase was get your bell rung. That's serious stuff now.
Oh, very serious. And just tangent, great to see Jake Haener having some 2 good weeks in preseason. But, we were talking earlier about the Yankees and Anthony Rizzo and that concussion. And that, I think, happened in May when Tatis was in a pickoff play at first base. And so he didn't go on the disabled or the injured list for like 2 or 3 months after that event. So yeah, these things can linger.
Yeah, post-concussion syndrome things can just show up.
Yeah.
Hey, we get to